Welcome back to the Oilers Fanatic. My name is Patrick,
My name is Toph.
and you are watching episode 3 of Rig 72, an Edmonton Oilers fan podcast. Now, full disclosure, I'm on vacation currently and away this week, so we are pre recording this episode early and releasing it. So, obviously, we can't do the segment, The Oilers This Week, because we don't know what happened this week yet. So in its place, Toph and I both prepared rosters. I did a couple projected rosters, a 23-man roster and a 21-man roster. And Toph did a roster of players that he would like to see on the Oilers' final roster to start the season. So I'll get things started with my 23-man roster, then I'll throw it over to Toph, and then we can go over my 21-man roster. So for my 23-man roster, I went with the top line of Evander Kane, Connor McDavid, and Zach Hyman. The second line of Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Leon Draisaitl, and Kyler Yamamoto. The third line of Dylan Holloway, Ryan McLeod, and Warren Foegele. And a fourth line of Matthias Janmark, Brad Malone, and Derek Ryan. As this is a 23-man roster, the Oilers can carry 13 forwards. So I have Devon Shore as my 13th forward. I like Devon Shore in that spot because he's a real utility player. He can play center, left wing, or right wing, so he can replace anybody on the fourth line there as needed. With this roster, I bit the bullet, and I've traded Jesse Puljujärvi for a draft pick. I want to start out by saying I'm a fan of Jesse. We've talked about this on the podcast before. I'd love to have him on the roster, but I just feel like the freedom of being able to do a 23-man roster is just too good to pass up. So with this roster, you can do 13 forwards, and I just feel like it gives the Oilers a lot more options than obviously only having 12 forwards at their disposal. Right now, I have Nuge as a winger, but you can flip him with Ryan McLeod or move him to the third line and promote Holloway or McLeod up. With Hyman and Foegele on the right side, I think the Oilers should be good, but it certainly wouldn't hurt to look for a trade deadline acquisition, or maybe Xavier Bourgault earns a call-up. Tannen could also land a spot. For the defense, I went with Darnell Nurse and Cody Ceci in the top pairing, Brett Kulak and Tyson Barrie in the second pairing, Philip Broberg and Evan Bouchard in the third pairing, and I have Ryan Murray as the seventh defenseman. With it being a 23-man roster, the Oilers can carry 8 defensemen, so I have Jason Demers there as well, earning a contract out of camp at $750,000, and of course, Soup and Stew and Goal at $5,750,000. Overall, my roster has a cap hit of $82,224,833, and the team would have $275,167 in cap space. What are your thoughts on that roster, Toph?
So, as you'll see when we get into mine, I really like the idea of having the Nuge as the third line center. And, of course, I don't like the idea of trading Jesse, because I love Jesse. We love Jesse. This podcast loves Jesse. So, those are the big ones that stuck out to me. I also always put Yamamoto on first line with Connor, just because they play off each other so well, and it makes up for some of the shortcomings that Evander Kane has, where Evander Kane just is not quite as quick, and so having McDavid and Yamamoto on that first line is the way that I always envision it. That's not to say you're wrong, it's just to say that I went, what? Yamamoto not on the first line? What are you doing?
Well, that's the way I saw it. So let's take a look at the way you saw it.
So for mine, and this is my heart says, not my prognostication powers are powerful, right? We're not doing the Oilers this week because we can't predict the future, and then we're going to try to predict the future anyway. So this is what I would do from watching all the games last year. So, first line, I've got Evander Kane, Connor McDavid, Kyler Yamamoto. And I think that really plays to all of their strengths. And once in a while, then Kyler's going up against, top line D and burning them. And that is my favorite thing to watch. Second line, I've got Zach Hyman, Leon Draisaitl, and Jesse Puljujärvi. And part of the strategy there is that I really want Yessie to do well. And this is why this is my heart says roster. I think putting him down on the second line with Leon and Hyman gives him all the chances that you can possibly give him to succeed. And I think that line, if they're all three firing, is like a solid one line on any other team. Third line, I've got Nuge in the middle on that one, and partially just because I want to see Nuge get that opportunity again. And I've got Fogle and Holloway there on the wings with him. And I think that could be a really dangerous line as well. And that also gives Holloway the opportunity to really step up. And I think we all want to see that. And also, it's been pretty explicit that Holloway's top 9 is in Bakersfield. And so if Holloway's going to be on the team, that's where Holloway goes.
He's got to be on that third line.
Yeah. Fourth line, I've got McLeod down the middle, and then Shore and Janmark on the wings. And I think that would be a really good get in the way kind of line that occasionally, scores like 3 in a night. So I would really like that. And then the extra skater is Derek Ryan for me, and that would give flexibility for those nights where you're like Nuge has to pop up to the second line and give Leon someone to throw it to. So Derek Ryan slots in very nicely as the ancillary skater.
Yeah, no, I like that lineup. Yeah, I definitely want to see Nuge at third line center. That'd be really exciting, and I think that's just really the best place for him because I've always got enough young guys coming up that I want to see how they look on the wings, and having McDavid, Draisaitl, Nuge as your top 3 centers, that's just an embarrassment of riches right there. So
yeah, that third line with Nuge, Fogle, and Holloway could be the "there's more" line, and that would be really fun. On defense, I've got Nurse and Barry on the top line, and that was mostly because I saw them play off each other really well last year. And then Kulak and CC on the second line for basically the same reason. I think that may make the gap between first and second line bigger. But I think that as pairings, they're stronger, Nurse and Barry, Kulak and CC. Just from watching last year and seeing what they do and how they play against each other. And then third line, I've got Broberg and Bouchard. And mostly that's a sort of like, you two like each other. Go out there and prove it, right? That's my idea there. And then Ryan Murray as the 7th defenseman there. And then, of course, Soup and Stew in goal. And I love that we get to call them Soup and Stew.
That's a great nickname for sure. Yeah, I kind of like Broberg and Bouchard as the third pairing, and like the 2 young guys trying to prove themselves. It's back in 2017 when the Oilers went on that, made it to the second round anyway. I don't know how much of a cup run it was, but made it to the second round. Darnell Nurse and Matt Benning were the third pairing that year, and imagine Darnell Nurse is our top pairing now. At that point, he was in our third pairing, but I thought 2 young guys paired together kind of gives some energy in that third pairing and kind of gives those guys a bit more room to grow. They're not having as much responsibility thrust on them. So we'll see what happens at a training camp. But I kind of like Philip Broberg and Evan Bouchard as a potential third pairing for the Oilers.
Yeah, and it gives them space. So Nurse is big and also looms large. And so when you find yourself out there with Nurse, it really seems that a lot of people like, oh, okay, so he's the line and I'm here to not screw this up, right? If you watch them out there, and that's part of the reason why I like Tyson Barrie out there with Nurse, is no, Tyson Barrie's going to do what Tyson Barrie does, and that frees Nurse up to do what Nurse does, at least from what I've seen. I am not a coach, but that's what I saw last year, and anybody gets stuck with Nurse because we also know that Nurse is going to pull the most minutes out of anybody on this team, and this would give that little bit of flexibility for whoever's gassed can sit a little bit longer, and you can throw just about anybody out there with Nurse, and it'll be all right.
Oh, he's one of those. He's the Oilers' #1 defenseman, so that's what they're paying him the big bucks for this year. So.
Yeah, and looking at all these numbers here, he's number 2 in the money.
Yeah. Yeah, right behind McDavid, but I think Draisaitl will be passing him here in a couple of years. So let's go next to my 21-man roster. So this is obviously the more realistic possibility for the Oilers at this point because they can't do a 23-man roster unless they make a trade. So if no trade is made, I can see the Oilers going with these 12 forwards. So I have Kane, McDavid, Yamamoto on the #1 line, Zach Hyman, Leon Draisaitl, and Jesse Puljujarvi on the second line. So those are kind of the lines we've seen so far in training camp. So I kind of pulled my inspiration from there. That's kind of already what Jay Woodcroft is experimenting with. Obviously, it's very early in training camp, so that can very easily change, especially if Jesse Puljujarvi gets traded. But for now, I think that's a solid top 6 right there for the Oilers. My third line has Ryan Nugent-Hopkins at center with Dylan Holloway and Warren Foegele. And my fourth line, Ryan McLeod centering Matthias Janmark. And I have Jake Virtanen making my team here. So I thought I would throw Jake Virtanen there just because the Oilers need somebody in that price range. He could earn a spot out of camp. And if he does earn a spot in that third or fourth line is where it's going to be. Another player you could put there if the Oilers do part ways with Jake Virtanen is Tyler Benson. He's also a $750K cap hit. Just no matter who you put there, it has to be in that price range to make the money work. I have Dylan Holloway making it, of course. Derek Ryan and Devin Shore have been sent down to Bakersfield. I can see Shore remaining in Bakersfield, but you have to think the Oilers don't want to keep Derek Ryan down any longer than he has to be, so something has to give somewhere. That's why I think it's more likely than not we do see a trade at some point. Maybe not before the start of the season, but probably early in the season. Another possibility is if somebody's put on waivers and claimed, say the Oilers put Warren Foegele on waivers or Derek Ryan or Matthias Janmark. If one of those guys gets claimed, that helps the Oilers in a big way. There's some cap space, creates more possibilities, but right now I think a trade is probably the more likely scenario that we see happen for the Oilers here going forward. My defense is basically the same minus Jason Demers because the Oilers can only go with 7 defensemen. Oilers do have depth that is already signed that they can call on, so bringing in Demers isn't something that they really have to do anyway. So hopefully something can be worked out there if Jason Demers has a strong training camp. So overall, my 21-man roster has a cap hit of $82,487,333, leaving the Oilers with $12,667 in cap space. What do you think of my second roster, Toph?
So, I like this roster because for those of you following along at home in our home game of Rig 72, we only disagreed on one for the skaters, and the defense is a little bit different. All right, who is it?
Jake Virtanen.
Yeah, because I didn't put Virtanen up there because I wasn't thinking about Virtanen. And that's literally why he wasn't on my roster. And yeah, so you subbed out Virtanen for sure, and otherwise it's identical to mine. And so obviously I like those lines.
Yeah, and like I said, you can throw Tyler Benson in there. Devin Shore will be too much at 850, but if the Oilers can have another guy there at 750K for this roster, it would work. So otherwise, you have to send somebody else, another Matthias Janmark or a Warren Foegele down. But yeah, it's a good roster. It's possible because Ryan McLeod signed for only $798,000, so a bit of a blessing there for the Oilers. Just really help because they need basically every cent right now for the Oilers. It'd be nice to make a trade just because I'd love to have the 23-man roster to have the extra guys, but this 21-man roster, it could be really good, and The Oilers could be rolling with it for a while. So we'll see what happens there.
So, rolling over from what we think might happen in the future into something that happened a very long time ago. My Oilers facts and history for this week. I just wanted to talk a little bit about Pro Stars, which I don't know how much exposure Pro Stars had north of the border, but down here it was huge. So in 1991, there was a very silly cartoon that starred Bo Jackson, Wayne Gretzky, and Michael Jordan. So the greats, the greats, the greats. And week to week, they would like solve crimes and protect the planet, and it was just an intensely silly cartoon. And there was live action segments before each cartoon with the stars themselves, and then the cartoon was not voiced by them. It was voiced by apparently professional voice actors. And in that cartoon, they each had their own weird quirk that was like the driving central character idea for them. And Wayne Gretzky's was he was hungry all the time. I distinctly remember, despite it being more than 30 years ago, that Wayne Gretzky loves sandwiches. I don't know why that was what they went with, because Michael Jordan was smart and the leader, and Bo Jackson was, a force to be reckoned with, and Wayne Gretzky liked sandwiches. And so it was a very strange thing, and if you get a chance to find that on some beta from the 90s, I recommend it. It's very strange, and I really want to revisit it, and at some point I'll be able to find it again.
It's got to be on YouTube somewhere, I would think.
I found the opening credits to it,
Okay.
and it's very 90s, but I could not find a full episode. If you know where to find full episodes legit, please let me know.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that show. I don't. That must have been early '90s, was it?
Yeah, that was 1991, and it lasted
yeah.
one season.
Well, that would explain why I very vaguely remember. Okay, yeah. Well, that'd be interesting. Yeah, for sure. Let us know in the comment section below if it's available somewhere. I wouldn't mind checking out a few episodes of that. So last week we were looking at some of our fan comments and critiques. So we didn't get to all of them. So we're going to head back to them here and finish off those comments that you guys sent in from episode 1 of Rig 72. So our next comment is from Diane. I lived in the Peg when Bobby Hall signed that $1 million contract to get the WHA off the ground. Very exciting times, and the Jets had a great team. I was also in the Peg when we lost the Jets, and I still hate Bettman for that. I imagine I would hate that too if I was a Winnipeg Jets fan. I was in Winnipeg when we got them back, but moved to Edmonton that year, and when the Oilers got McDavid, I just fell in love with the Oilers. So, well, at least it all worked out for in the end, Diane. But the Oilers almost left. Oh, what year is it now? Around the mid '90s, there was a little movement here in Edmonton. There was, remember, little Oilers SOS signs, and then the Edmonton Investors Group came in and saved the Oilers after Peter Pocklington was gonna possibly sell them to someone in Houston, I believe. So almost had 2 Houston Oilers teams. So, but thankfully Edmonton didn't go, and we've got Connor McDavid here, and could have been really bad times. So definitely feel for you, Diane, losing the Jets. But Jets are back in Winnipeg now as a new team, but happy for the fans in Winnipeg that they have a team again.
Yeah, and maybe Diane and I agree on our hatred of the Coyotes then.
Possibly, or maybe she kept cheering for them.
It's very possible.
Yeah.
Diane also says, I watched our young stars play yesterday, and this was, of course, now 2 weeks in the past from this episode. I'm impressed with a whole bunch of these young guys. Holloway is a beast along with Brno and Broberg, Kesselring, Hamlin, Savoy, Petrov, Kemp, Philippe, Fanti was good in net. We got a great future with these guys.
Yeah, the Oilers have a lot of great, amazing young prospects. Can't wait to see what Borgo does. I think he's definitely the Oilers' future on right wing. Can also be a centerman. Dylan Holloway is also a centerman as well as winger. So a lot of great possibilities there. James Hamlin looked great so far in the prospect camp, so we'll see how he does in training camp for the Oilers. Oberg's on the team, looks like. Ryan Fanti, the future in goal after Jack Campbell and Stuart Skinner. So Noah Philp, a guy the Oilers signed out of the University of Alberta. And it'd be interesting to see what he does. He could possibly be a potential fourth-line center for the Oilers. I don't know if this year, he's on a one-year deal, so we'll see how he does. I imagine he ends up in Bakersfield, but he might earn a call-up. I believe he's a right shot center, and right shot centers are very hard to come by. So he's a guy that could potentially have a future with the Oilers for sure. So see what happens there. I know you were saying in episode 1 you were familiar with Ryan Fanti there, Toph, just from watching the Frozen 4 there.
Yeah. Big hopes on Fanti. And also, I'm still a goalie fan, even though they make no sense. Or maybe because they make no sense.
Because they make no sense. That's got to be it. So Diane also wrote, I agree about Yessi. He has a lot more to offer. We've gone this far, so why not go a little further to see what he does going forward? I think Yessi's getting a chance here. As I was mentioning, he could possibly be traded before the end of training camp, but we'll see what happens there. If not, I think he's got a chance to have a great bounce back year with the Oilers. Any more thoughts on that, Toph? I know we've talked about Yessi quite a bit so far, but
yeah, this is almost the Yessi Puljujärvi fan cast at this point. But yeah, we love Yessi, and yes, I agree. This year is really important, and I really hope that he does well, whether it's here or elsewhere. Steven says, really cool. I think timestamps in the video would make this perfect. Well, we're going to try.
Yeah, I'm going to try and put those in for you, Steven. So it should have been in episode 2 already for you. So it should be a continuation here on to episode 3. And so thank you for the suggestion. And like we've mentioned before, if you've got critiques, suggestions, anything, please feel free to let us know in the comments section below. We're always looking to make this show better for you. So our next comment is from Darcy. There are 3 or 4 teams with cap space that the Oilers can make a trade with. You can't tell me that one of those teams wouldn't take Foegele or Puljujärvi. Well, I think there's probably 2-3 teams that would take Jesse Puljujärvi, Warren Foegele. From what I've heard anyway, obviously we don't have any firsthand knowledge of this, but apparently it's going to take a draft pick with Warren Foegele to move him. Foegele isn't coming off a very strong season at $2.75 million. A lot of teams feel that they can get a player that produces similar results at a much cheaper cap hit than paying Foegele $2.75 million. So I think that's why the Oilers are looking at Jesse Puljujärvi most overall for being moved, just because he's the guy that would have the most value in a trade. Yes, you can try and move Warren Foegele. I think they want to keep Tyson Barrie at this point, but move a Derek Ryan or something like that. But those guys just don't have the value. You're going to have to add things to move them. Jesse Puljujärvi, while he doesn't have a ton of value, I think the Oilers could get something in the range of a second or a third round pick for him. See what happens there. But yeah, there are teams that would take Puljujärvi for sure, but Warren Foegele, I don't know how many teams would be really interested in him at this point. Any other thoughts on that, Toph?
If your mindset is we need to get these guys out the door to get cap space, yes, there are definitely trade partners there. Absolutely. The Ducks have been mentioned. The entire Coyotes team is cap dump, right? And there's definitely teams that would take them on, as long as you sweeten the pot. And with Foegele and Puljujärvi especially, like, don't know that you want to lose them, and you certainly don't want to lose them for less than nothing. Pay someone to take them. And yeah, so I think that that's why there hasn't been any movement, is just the deals that make the Oilers better are not there. And I'm guessing from what we've seen that that's why a move hasn't been made. It's not purely an issue of nobody having cap space. It's an issue of not finding the right value for these players.
Yeah, I think Ken Holland just feels like he has to get something. And yeah, I mean, if you trade Jesse Puljujärvi, people are going to be so angry with him. And then if it's for a really crappy return, you're just adding to the pain. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Yeah, like you mentioned, I think the Anaheim Ducks are definitely the number one spot because we know the Ducks were looking at right wingers. They were looking at Evan Rodriguez. He ends up going to Colorado for $2 million. So if you were willing to take on Rodriguez at $2 million, Puljujärvi at $3 million isn't really much of a stretch.
Yeah.
Ducks have a ton of cap space, and I heard that their head coach Dallas Eakins, former Oilers head coach, was checking in on Jesse Puljujärvi, wanted to get information on him. So there's definitely something there between Edmonton and Anaheim. Maybe it's something that's been put on the back burner, or Anaheim's offer just isn't matching what the Oilers want at this point. Who knows exactly what the story is, but if Jesse Puljujärvi does move, I'd be pretty shocked if it wasn't to the Anaheim Ducks. So we'll see what happens there going forward.
Some stranger replied with, used to watch the NBA religiously in the Michael Jordan era, so you might have liked our little foray into talking about pro stars. The game has changed so much since then, I just couldn't bear it anymore. There was a period of void, no sports watching, following for me. Then, being an Edmontonian, you just can't help but hear about the Oilers all the time. Started watching hockey around 2018-19 season. Now I'm an Oilers fanatic. Yeah. It's the seep in story. Yeah.
He's on the right channel, that's for sure. He came in at the exactly right time for the Edmonton Oilers, just as they were turning things around. 2018, 2019 was a down year, but the last couple of years didn't get the results come playoff time until last year. But at least you're seeing the team like make the turn. Got Connor McDavid, got Leon Draisaitl. It looks like the pieces are coming together around them finally. And now we're being called a legit cup contender this year. So hopefully the boys can get it done. But yeah, it's definitely a great time to come in and be an Oilers fan.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. So 3D put, find it strange no true Oilers fans seem to know anything about Demers. At the last Olympics, he pretty much dominated and was one of the best players on the ice every shift from what I saw watching all their games. Solid pickup for nothing. Well, we were mentioning earlier about Jason Demers. Yeah, he's supposedly great in the locker room. I think he would be a solid number 8 defenseman for the Oilers. I don't see him bumping into the top 7 unless there's an injury. But like I said, I'd have no problem with the Oilers bringing him in on a 1-year, $750K deal. Don't see how it could hurt the Oilers at all. Any other thoughts on that, Toph?
Yeah, and if he does the domination all over again, like, fantastic. Yeah. It's a no-lose situation.
Exactly. I was about to say, yeah, no-lose situation for the Oilers, for sure.
Epiphany says, it's nice to have a show like this. Great job, you two. Take care, all. This makes my heart very, very full. Thank you, Epiphany.
Epiphany's a great guy. He's been around the channel pretty much on the start, or pretty close to the start anyway. Always supportive. Thank you very much for the continued support, Epiphany. Love having you at the channel, and thank you for your continued support and always offering your sometimes satirical comments and stuff, but we always enjoy reading them here on the channel. So our last comment for today comes from Winnie Edits. Don't really ever see a video this early. Let's go. So yeah, I did release this video. This was pertaining to episode 1. I released it around 11 a.m. Mountain Time in Edmonton. So yeah, I don't usually have videos done that early because that would require me to be up quite early. But I was actually editing this one from the night before That's why it was available so early in the day. So episode 2 was probably released around the same time, recording this now, so I'm not sure exactly when it came out. And episode 3 should be coming around the same time as well. So when he edits, we'll try and have these continually coming out early for you on Saturday mornings.
And that actually brings us to the question of the week, because apparently this is a Saturday morning show, just like Pro Stars. A little bit of a stretch there, but I want to know who you think would be in Pro Stars if they made it today. So the setup was all the sports are represented, or the major 4. You had Bo Jackson for football and baseball, you had Wayne Gretzky for hockey, and you had Michael Jordan for basketball. In 2022, who would the 3 or the 4 be? What do you think? And if you're putting McDavid in there as the hockey representative, does he love sandwiches or does he love something else?
Well, Connor McDavid would definitely be in there for me. I feel like he's always promoting something drinking, so he's like the BioSteel guy, right? So they probably have Connor drinking something. Obviously not alcohol, a healthy sports drink of some kind or something like that. So yeah, Connor McDavid definitely, and then I'd say drinking something, promoting something healthy.
I mean, the obvious one for football is probably Tom Brady. Tom
Brady
is unavoidable at this point. You could also throw Aaron Rodgers in there, but Aaron Rodgers is surrounded by weirdness because Aaron Rodgers just seems to be a very strange person. And so Tom Brady would be the obvious one. Squeaky clean from a certain point of view. Basketball, I mean, LeBron's the obvious one, but maybe we make this an all Canadian show and completely cast it differently, right?
Yeah, well, it'd have to be really wholesome then if it's going to be a Canadian show. Can't have anything controversial in there at all.
At baseball, I want Joey Votto. Joey Votto makes no sense, but I love Joey Votto.
If it's Canadian, they'll probably have to be all 3 hockey players. I mean, yeah, you could throw a Blue Jay in there, but yeah. Let's go for all 3 hockey players. It'd be, well, Austin Matthews is American, but the Toronto Maple Leaf star, so he'd probably be in there. And somebody from Vancouver, or, well, I guess Calgary is considered a good team now, aren't they? Yeah, maybe Huberdeau or Kadri or something. Yeah. I don't know.
All right, so fans, what's your fan cast for Pro Stars 2022? Let us know.
I think that'll probably be a wrap there. Any final thoughts, Toph, before we sign off here?
Nope. I hope your vacation went well. We'll be back next week live. Well, not quite live, for getting ready for the opening day puck drop.
Yeah. Current news.
Yes.
There won't be any projections sections. We'll have actual news for you in next week's episode. So back to normal. So yeah, looking forward to vacation here. So very badly needed. Been busy at work, taking lots of videos. So this will be a nice little break to the batteries recharged before the hockey season officially gets underway. So yeah, I think that's all for today, guys. My name is Patrick.
My name is Toph.
You've been watching Rig 72 on the Oilers Fanatic. Thanks for being a fan.